This one was a rough one, you know what I'm saying? But God got us. God got us on this one. He's telling us for the next couple, we're going to have to work.
And after nearly a 2-month trial with 34 witnesses and hours of salacious testimony, a jury of 8 men and 4 women finds Sean Diddy Combs not guilty of racketeering and trafficking, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. While Diddy's family celebrated in the courthouse hallways, the rest of the world watched in disbelief as one of the most anticipated verdicts in recent memory delivered. What many are calling a devastating blow to justice, this verdict has shocked legal experts, and what the jury refused to convict him for says more than what they did. The scene outside the Manhattan courthouse told 2 very different stories. Inside, according to NBC News reporters, Diddy's loved ones were seen celebrating the results of what they're calling a partial victory in his legal saga. The Bad Boy Records founder's family stayed stoic as they entered the courthouse on July 2nd, but departed with smiles and waves after hearing the media mogul had been found not guilty on 3 out of 5 counts. Diddy's son, Christian King Combs, told reporters his dad was feeling great about the verdicts, with Diddy reportedly telling his gathered family, "Thank you. Love you." The emotional moment was punctuated by Chance Combs being spotted wiping away tears alongside her grandmother, who gave a thumbs up to the media frenzy outside the courthouse. The judge is currently deciding right now whether Combs will actually be released today, his defense arguing that since the music mogul was acquitted of the most serious crimes, he should be able to go home. Once court was adjourned, family members cheered today's verdict. But while the Combs family celebrated, victim advocates and legal observers expressed outrage at what they're calling a miscarriage of justice. After weeks of graphic testimony, trafficking allegations, and high-profile victims, the jury said no to the most serious charges. The question everyone's asking is why. Some say the jury didn't believe the victims, others say they just wanted to get home for the 4th of July. The jury found Diddy guilty of shuttling workers across state lines for illegal purposes, but not of trafficking Cassie, not of bribery, not of kidnapping, and not of racketeering. The prosecution's entire RICO case collapsed like a house of cards, leaving federal prosecutors scrambling to explain how their slam-dunk case turned into a partial acquit. Sean Diddy Combs was convicted on counts 3 and 5, both related to transporting workers across state lines. The jury agreed that he brought these individuals across state boundaries for what they determined were prostitution-related offenses. These were the charges involving what prosecutors called ex-workers, people who were transported interstate as part of what the government claimed was a massive criminal enterprise. But here's the shocker that has legal experts scratching their heads and victims feeling betrayed. The jury completely rejected the charges involving Cassie and Jane. Combs' son Christian telling ABC News how happy he is. "Hey yo, we love y'all. We love everybody watching. So happy coming home. God bless. God bless the whole world." What was going through your head when the verdict was reading the high-profile ALLEGED victims whose stories dominated headlines for months and sparked the entire federal investigation? They didn't see these women as trafficking victims the way prosecutors presented them. Cassie's claims dismissed. Jane's testimony apparently not credible enough for conviction. The failure to convict on these trafficking charges created a domino effect that destroyed the government's biggest weapon, Count 1. The racketeering charge under RICO. This was supposed to be the knockout punch, the charge that could have buried Diddy for decades and dismantled what prosecutors claimed was a criminal organization. Instead, it became the prosecution's most embarrassing defeat. For a RICO conviction, prosecutors needed to prove just underlying criminal acts from 6 possible categories. They had the interstate transportation of workers, which seemed straightforward. But they needed one more predicate act, and that's where everything fell apart in spectacular fashion. Prosecutors showed images of drugs, pills, wire transfers, and extensive financial records. They even claimed there was a systematic drug operation and possible witness tampering spanning years. But the jury wasn't convinced. Or maybe they just didn't want to deal with the complexity of federal racketeering law during a holiday weekend. Kira, no decision quite yet from the judge just a couple of minutes ago, though I can tell you we saw the Combs family van pull up to court once again, presumably to hear this decision on whether or not Combs will be released. The deadline that the judge gave both the prosecution and the defense just passed a couple of minutes ago. The prosecution presented what they believed was overwhelming evidence of controlled substances and drug distribution, arguing this could easily serve as the second RICO predicate. The jury specifically asked about the substances during deliberations, which initially gave prosecutors hope they were seriously considering this mountain of evidence. But then came the devastating blow. They ultimately decided this extensive drug evidence didn't meet the legal standard for racketeering. Think about the implications of this decision. Prosecutors laid out alleged evidence of pills, various controlled substances, and what they characterized as a coordinated drug distribution operation spanning multiple states and years. They connected financial records to drug purchases, witnessed testimony to systematic distribution, and physical evidence to ongoing criminal activity. The jury examined all of this evidence and said, not sufficient for RICO. They also rejected evidence of alleged bribery, including financial payments they claimed were made to silence victims and by cooperation. They dismissed kidnapping allegations despite testimony about people being held against their will. They ignored witness intimidation claims, even with evidence of threatening communications. The drug ring allegations rejected. The supposed criminal enterprise completely shattered in court. Legal expert Christopher Malure, who's been providing analysis for CBS and other major outlets, delivered devastating news about what these convictions actually mean in terms of real prison time. The maximum sentence for the charges Diddy was convicted on is 10 years. But here's the part that will infuriate victims and their supporters. There's no mandatory minimum sentence. Melcher expects Diddy will serve just 3 to 5 years in federal prison. That's it. They were set to turn in their letters at 100 p.m. So, for the last couple of hours, they've been working on their cases. Both sides, for and against us's release. The defense wants to see Combs walk out of those golden doors here behind us. They say that because he was acquitted of the more serious charges here, that he should go home. 3 to 5 years for everything the government accused him of doing over decades. He'll receive credit for time already served, which significantly reduces his actual.
That I must say you must try for your pregame. That's a rock dog. Puts me in a smooth mood. Makes me start really getting.
Remaining time, plus 54 days of good behavior credit per year against his sentence. This represents a massive victory for Diddy's high-powered defense team and a crushing, humiliating defeat for federal prosecutors who swung for the fences with RICO charges and completely whiffed what could have been a life sentence that would have ended his career and legacy turned into what essentially amounts to an extended break from his entertainment empire. According to Melchior's professional analysis, this was clearly a compromised verdict caused by holdouts on the more serious charges who refused to convict. His assessment of the prosecution strategy. The government catastrophically overcharged, with RICO confusing the jury and making conviction on the most serious charges nearly impossible to achieve. Here's where this story gets really disturbing and frankly infuriating for anyone who believes in accountability. Legal experts strongly believe some jurors wanted to convict on trafficking and RICO charges, while others absolutely refused to budge from their positions. Rather than stay deadlocked indefinitely and continue deliberating, they found middle ground that let everyone go home happy for the holiday. Everyone except the alleged victims. The timing of this verdict tells the entire story of what went wrong. Deliberations happened right before the 4th of July holiday weekend, one of the biggest vacation periods of the year, and be with his family. But prosecutors have argued that he's a flight risk, and they say that he is still facing 20 up to 20 years in prison on these lesser charges. They are arguing he should be held until his sentencing. Kira, these jurors had been serving for weeks, dealing with complex evidence, disturbing testimony, and mounting pressure from the court system to reach some kind of decision. They were exhausted. They wanted to get back to their families and barbecues, and they were staring down a long holiday weekend. After weeks of graphic testimony, drug trafficking allegations, and high-profile victims sharing their traumatic experiences, the jury said no to the most serious charges. Legal observers are openly questioning whether these jurors were more interested in fireworks and family gatherings than delivering justice for alleged trafficking victims, who risked everything to come forward. The jury returned verdicts on counts 3 and 5 relatively quickly, suggesting they'd reached early agreement on the worker transportation charges, which were seen as the easiest to prove, but they struggled for much longer on count 1, the racketeering charge, where they seemed genuinely split about whether the extensive evidence met federal standards for organized crime, in a twist that has courtroom observers stunned and prosecutors reportedly furious. The judge announced he's considering letting Diddy out on bail even after his federal conviction. That almost never happens in federal court. Post-conviction bail is extraordinarily rare, especially for charges involving interstate transportation for prostitution. The judge stated he needs time to consider whether Diddy can be granted bail while awaiting sentencing, specifically mentioning he needed to review fistitutes and asking attorneys for precedent cases where bail was denied after conviction under the Mann Act. So, Bernardo, if Combs does stay in custody, how much jail time do you expect he would actually serve? So in terms of, if the judge does decide that Sean Combs remains in custody pending sentencing, the judge will ultimately determine what his sentence is. You have to think that the sentencing is not going to take place in another week or two. We're talking about months from now that the sentence will take place. $1 million bond is being discussed, which would be pocket change for someone with Diddy's wealth. This is absolutely unprecedented and has legal experts questioning whether celebrity status and wealth are once again trumping standard legal procedures. Federal defendants convicted on similar charges are almost always immediately remanded to custody pending sentencing. The fact that this judge is even considering bail shows how dramatically the jury's partial acquit changed the entire legal landscapes. Diddy could literally walk out the courthouse doors today, smiling and waving to his celebrating family while the alleged victims watch in horror as their abuser goes home to his mansion. He could sleep in his own bed, continue running his business, empire, and maintain his lifestyle while waiting for a sentencing hearing that might only add a few more years to his minimal prison time. During weeks of testimony, federal prosecutors presented what they believed was an ironclad case showing interstate transportation of workers for illegal purposes, extensive controlled substances and drug distribution operations, financial transactions they characterized as systematic bribery to silence victims, detailed allegations of kidnapping and false imprisonment, and extensive claims of witness intimidation and obstruction of justice throughout their investigation. The jury accepted only the interstate transportation evidence involving unnamed workers, finding everything else insufficient to meet federal legal standards. This suggests they either found serious credibility problems with the other evidence, or disagreed fundamentally with how prosecutors connected that evidence to specific criminal charges. And in terms of all the time that he's already been in custody, he's going to get credit for that time. So no matter what amount of sentence the judge sentences him to, he'll get credit for about the 9 months that he has been in custody. Yes, he faces a maximum of 10 years on each of those counts. Highly unlikely that this judge is going to max Sean Combs out. Prosecutors had argued extensively that drug distribution alone could serve as a second RICO predicate, emphasizing that federal law required only to proven criminal acts for racketeering conviction. They spent weeks methodically explaining this legal standard and connecting their extensive evidence to these requirements, believing they had multiple pathways to conviction. The jury's complete rejection of this approach suggests they were either genuinely confused about what constituted sufficient proof for racketeering charges, or they simply didn't accept the prosecution's interpretation of evidence that seemed compelling to legal observers. Diddy's expensive legal team consistently argued throughout the trial that this case didn't meet RICO standards, systematically challenging every piece of evidence and every legal theory prosecutors presented. They argued that
if you have a dream, if you have that
in a verdict that stunned the world and divided public opinion, Sean Diddy Combs walked free from one of the most significant celebrity trials in recent history. The courtroom scene, which had been filled with tension for weeks, erupted with celebration from Diddy's family the moment the verdict was read. Smiles, hugs, and emotional outbursts played out on live TV while outside. Supporters of victims stood in silence, some with tears streaming down their faces. This is the new face of justice in America, where power, privilege, and public image collide with accountability, truth, and trauma. In this exclusive riveted documentary, we explore every layer of this controversial case in a deep dive that spans over 10,000 words of thorough analysis, expert commentary, survivor testimony, and cultural reflection. This isn't just a celebrity story, it's a societal reckoning. Sean Diddy Combs is more than just a music mogul. For over 3 decades, he's been at the epicenter of pop culture, shaping music, fashion, nightlife, and even politics. His legacy has influenced everything from hip-hop to luxury branding. But this trial peeled back that carefully curated image, revealing a much darker narrative, one filled with allegations of abuse, manipulation, and systemic exploitation. The Prosecution's bold move to file RICO charges, typically used for mafia and gang prosecutions, set the tone early on. They argued that Diddy's entertainment empire operated like a criminal enterprise, hiding serious offenses behind glamorous parties and private jets. They cited patterns of coercion, intimidation, trafficking, and bribery that extended beyond any one victim. And yet, the defense strategy dismantled this framing piece by characterizing Diddy's behavior as morally questionable but not criminally organized. They were able to persuade the jury that the allegations failed to meet the standard for racketeering. The defense claimed the government was overreaching, trying to turn the music business into a mafia movie. This proved powerful with jurors. They emphasized that RICO laws were never intended for celebrity disputes, no matter how scandalous. They drove home the point that controversial personal behavior, even involving sex, drugs, and power, doesn't automatically amount to a criminal conspiracy. Their success was not limited to legal arguments. They meticulously broke down witness credibility. For months, the media had amplified Cassie's story as central to the case, a harrowing account of grooming, trafficking, and psychological control. She had filed civil litigation, released public statements, and received mass public support. But in court, under direct and cross-examination, her narrative came under scrutiny. The jury's decision to acquit Diddy on all charges related to Cassie and another high-profile accuser, known only as Jane, stunned court watchers. It suggests the jury either didn't believe their stories or saw the relationships as consensual, however toxic. For survivor advocates, this was a crushing moment. After decades of powerful men escaping accountability, this felt like yet another gut punch. This outcome sent a chilling message across the industry. If a case this high-profile, backed by federal resources, multiple victims, and a tsunami of public support, couldn't result in a conviction, what hope is there for victims of lesser-known figures? And yet, as Diddy's family celebrated, outside the courthouse, flashing peace signs and praising God, it became clear. This verdict is a cultural turning point. It represents not only a legal conclusion but a broader societal debate about who we choose to believe, protect, and punish. In this video, Riveted covers the full timeline of Diddy's legal troubles and how this trial came to Beatty prosecutions, use of RICO and what it means in celebrity legal cases, the defense team's game-changing tactics and their impact on jury and detailed breakdowns of key witness testimonies and courtroom moments, Casey's role in shaping and shaking the public narrative, how race, gender, and power influenced everything from the jury box to the headlines, the legal system's ongoing failure to hold the powerful accountable, survivor group reactions, and the trauma of watching a public loss of verdicts, ripple effects in Hollywood, music, and corporate America, coming civil lawsuits, and what could still bring Diddy back to court. Commentary from former prosecutors, celebrity attorneys, legal scholars, and advocates, a cultural analysis of the verdict's long-term implications on trust, celebrity, and justice, with exclusive footage, court transcripts, and expert interviews. We leave no stone unturned. This isn't just a breakdown of a verdict, it's a deep reflection of the culture that made it possible. Whether you support Diddy or stand with the survivors, one thing is certain: this case has exposed deep cracks in the justice system and challenged America's relationship with power and celebrity. As Diddy's family celebrates, the rest of us are left to wonder, is this justice? Or just a reminder that in today's world, money still talks louder than truth. Subscribe to Riveted for more exclusive investigations, courtroom drama, and behind-the-scenes access to the stories the industry doesn't want you to see. But guilty on 2 charges of transportation, trying to criminalize what they characterized as normal. While Diddy's family celebrated in the entertainment industry business practices, the rest of the world watched their strategy of aggressively questioning the RICO charges in recent memory, devastatingly effective. What many are calling a devastating blow to justice. Created enough doubt about whether alleged criminal acts and what the jury level of organized racketeering more than what they did. On the most serious charge that could have destroyed Diddy's life. Very different stories. The defense likely emphasized repeatedly according to NBC that News RICO was designed for traditional organized crime families celebrating the results of what they're calling entertainment industry in his legal disputes. The Bad Boy Records founders' family framing probably resonated strongly with jurors who were reluctant to treat celebrity with smiles and waves after hearing the media mogul has been found not guilty on 3 out of 5 counts. They
Diddy's
also
son,
successfully
Christian
challenged
King
the
Combs,
credibility of
told
key
reporters
witnesses,
his dad was
and the
feeling great
interpretation
about
of
the
evidence
verdicts, with Diddy
prosecutors
reportedly
presented as
telling
proof
his
of
gathered
criminal
family,
enterprise.
"Thank you.
Their ability
Love
to
you."
prevent RICO
The emotional
conviction,
moment
while not
was
stopping
punctuated by
conviction
Chance
on worker
Combs
being spotted wiping away
transportation
tears
charges
alongside
demonstrate
her grandmother,
sophisticated,
who
targeted
gave a
defense
thumbs
work
up to
that
the media
protected their
frenzy
client from the
outside the
most
courthouse.